What if everything you were taught about the birth of Jacksonville is only half the story and the other half was deliberately buried? Not metaphorically buried, literally buried. Beneath layers of mud, filled dirt, rewritten records, and a disaster narrative so convenient it stopped questions before they could even form. We're told Jacksonville was wiped out by the Great Fire of 1901, reduced to ashes, and then bravely rebuilt into the modern city we see today. A clean slate, a fresh start. Progress rising from destruction. But what if the fire wasn't the beginning of Jacksonville's story? What if it was the end of another one? When you look at early photographs of Jacksonville taken just after 1901, something feels wrong. Not dramatic, not obvious at first glance, just off. Buildings appear partially sunken. Windows sit at street level that clearly weren't designed to be there. Doors open into what should be underground. Entire blocks look like they were dug out rather than built up. Streets seem unnaturally high compared to the structures beside them. These aren't ruins being cleared. These look like survivors being uncovered. Official explanations say the streets were raised for drainage and modernization after the fire. That debris was cleared, fill was added, and new infrastructure demanded higher road levels. But that explanation collapses under one simple question. Why bury intact buildings? Why not demolish and rebuild, especially when you're already claiming total destruction? Why leave massive stone and brick structures standing and simply entomb their lower floors? In any modern city, that would be considered wasteful, dangerous, and absurd. Yet in Jacksonville, it happened repeatedly, and it didn't just happen in Jacksonville. That's where things get uncomfortable. Across the United States and across the world, cities from the same era show the same anomalies. Buried floors, raised streets, windows where sidewalks shouldn't be. Architecture far more advanced than the official age of the city. The same explanation is always offered. Urban improvement. But improvements usually involve hiding functional architecture underground, unless there's something inconvenient about what's already there. This is where the so-called mudflood hypothesis enters the conversation, a theory dismissed publicly, but never actually disproven. It suggests that sometime in the late 18th or early 19th century, a massive, poorly documented catastrophe buried cities under mud and sediment. Not a single flood like we imagine today, but a widespread, fast-moving slurry that filled streets, ground floors, and infrastructure. Afterward, survivors didn't rebuild from nothing. They dug out, modified, and covered over what they couldn't explain or afford to restore. Jacksonville fits this pattern disturbingly well. The city was officially young, yet its architecture was anything but. Multi-story masonry buildings with thick walls, ornate stonework, Romanesque arches, and European-style facades appeared in a region that supposedly lacked the population, wealth, and skilled labor to produce them at that scale. These weren't frontier buildings. These were civic structures, institutional structures. Structures that imply planning, permanence, and a long-established society. Look closely at old brickwork, and you'll notice color changes halfway up walls, as if construction happened in phases or as if a lower portion spent decades underground. You'll notice steps leading down into nothing, alleyways that feel sunken, basements with full-sized windows. These aren't design quirks, they're clues. After the 1901 fire, Jacksonville officials confirmed that street levels were raised. That's not speculation. It's in the records. But what isn't discussed is how much was buried, how fast it was done, and how little investigation took place. No archaeological surveys, no detailed documentation of what lay beneath, no public debate. The narrative was simple. The fire destroyed everything. We rebuilt. Move on. But the fire didn't destroy everything. Photographs show buildings still standing, walls intact, entire structures structurally sound. And that raises an uncomfortable possibility. The fire became the perfect justification. A catastrophe big enough to reset property lines, cancel old claims, rewrite maps, and reshape the city without resistance. When chaos hits, people don't ask questions. They survive. And when the dust settles, the story is already written. Who benefits from a clean historical slate? Developers, insurers, political power structures. A city that starts over can decide what matters and what doesn't, what gets remembered and what gets buried. Quite literally. And once again, Jacksonville isn't alone. Seattle buried an entire street level and now offers underground tours as a novelty, not a mystery. Chicago raised its city level by several feet while buildings somehow remained in place. San Francisco built over neighborhoods that vanished beneath fill. All of it framed as progress. None of it examined as a pattern. Ask yourself this: if these were just engineering decisions, why aren't they taught clearly in schools? Why isn't there public signage explaining buried floors? Why do museums gloss over it? Why are curious researchers dismissed instead of debated? Silence doesn't prove conspiracy, but silence in the presence of evidence is never accidental. Consider the possibility that the Great Fire of 1901 didn't erase Jacksonville's past, it finalized its erasure. That it destroyed what remained visible of a city already damaged by something earlier, something undocumented or deliberately forgotten. The fire cleared the last obstacles. After that, the narrative could be simplified. Jacksonville was born in 1901. Everything before that becomes irrelevant, messy, and inconvenient. But history doesn't disappear just because it's inconvenient. It leaves scars. It leaves inconsistencies. It leaves architecture that doesn't match timelines and streets that don't align with logic. It leaves stories that don't quite add up. Even today, construction crews in Jacksonville occasionally uncover strange features beneath the surface. Old foundations, covered entrances, stonework where none should exist. Each discovery is treated as an oddity, never as part of a larger question. Dig just deep enough to build, never deep enough to understand. And that might be the most unsettling part. The truth may not be hidden in secret vaults or classified documents. It may be right beneath our feet, ignored by choice rather than force. Because questioning it would mean questioning much more than one city. It would mean questioning how history itself is managed. If cities can bury their own past and replace it with a cleaner story, what else has been simplified? What else has been erased? What other disasters conveniently reset timelines and justified silence? This isn't about proving a single theory beyond all doubt. It's about recognizing patterns, asking why they repeat, and refusing to accept dismissive answers when the evidence demands curiosity. Jacksonville streets don't just carry traffic. They carry layers of history pressed down by time, weight, and official narratives. The next time you walk past a building with windows half underground, don't laugh it off. Ask why. The next time you see an old photograph that doesn't quite match the story you were told, don't scroll past it. Compare, question, connect the dots. Because history isn't only written by the victors. Sometimes it's buried by them. If this made you uneasy, that's not a flaw, it's a signal. Share this. Talk about it. Save it. And if you want a deep dive into another city hiding the same scars beneath its streets, let it be known. The truth doesn't vanish. It waits.